Good morning. I want to reflect briefly on one of the Psalms set for today. It's Psalm 126. When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream. Then our mouth was filled with laughter, and our tongue with shouts of joy. Then it was said among the nations, "The Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we rejoiced." Restore our fortunes, O Lord, like the watercourses in the Negeb. May those who sow in tears reap with shouts of joy. Those who go out weeping, bearing the seed for sowing, shall come home with shouts of joy, carrying their sheaves. My ear is caught in three ways by this psalm: its vivid imagery, its noise of laughter and tears and joy, and its immediacy, the sense that the psalmist is speaking directly to me, his expression distant as he recollects a significant event and the promise it embodied. Psalm 126 is one of a group of 15 psalms called Songs of Ascent. These psalms contain many references to Jerusalem, sometimes called Zion. Built on a hill, it must be ascended to, regardless of where you are coming from. The prophets Isaiah and Micah speak of a time when many people shall come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord." Another possible interpretation of these 15 ascents is contained in the Mishnah, an important Jewish text. The writer suggests that each of the Psalms of Ascent represents one of the 15 steps leading from the court of the women to the court of the Israelites in the temple at Jerusalem. Here, musicians would play and sing. The Levites on harps and on lyres, and with cymbals and with trumpets, and with other instruments of music without number upon the 15 steps. Upon them, the Levites used to stand with musical instruments and sing hymns. Although there is no reference to music in this psalm, music, both celebratory and sorrowful, is surely present in the laughter, the tears, and the shouts of joy. The Psalms are a strange literature, whose simplicity often belies their depths. From earliest times, they were sung, their emotional and spiritual complexity finding expression in the physicality of the human voice as they explore the full range of human experience. Old Testament scholar Walter Brueggemann observed how the Psalms track different cycles of our lives. There are times of stability when life is settled. There are times of disruption, personal and corporate, when death, disease, job loss, or relationship breakdown cause disorder and distress. And there are times of transition to a new and strange set of circumstances. Brueggemann classified the Psalms to fit this scheme as Psalms of orientation, Psalms of disorientation, and Psalms of new orientation. Psalms of disorientation are often psalms of lament, in which the psalmist may give voice to sorrow, distress, disappointment, grief, anger, knowing that there is nothing which cannot be brought before God. In Psalm 126, there is a sense of disruption around the community. The present is an uncomfortable place to be, so they remember joys past and anticipate joys to come, no doubt drawing strength and solace from this corporate recollection and looking forward as they call on God to come to their aid. God has once before restored this community to Zion and did great things among them. The psalmist appeals to God to act again so that they may rejoice in God's good provision. These faithful people recall their restoration to the land after the exile, an event which brought about laughter and rejoicing and provoked awe from neighboring countries at what God had done on their behalf. They are again in changed circumstances, and the community calls on God for restoration. Psalm 126 is set out in a way typical of other community psalms of lament. The people are in distress and cry out to God for deliverance. But they do so in a measured, even courteous way, taking care to recollect what God has done in the past, which gives assurance that God is willing to come to help God's people once more. The memory of past deliverance is repeated in the plea for help in present circumstances. Three powerful images bring this short psalm vividly to life. First, we hear 3 times the noise of rejoicing, an emotional, heartfelt response to God's goodness. The Hebrew word used here describes the joyful response of all creation. The same word is used in Psalm 98. Let the hills give a ringing cry of rejoicing. All humanity and all creation celebrate God's loving care. The second striking image is of water. The water channels of the Negev are the wadis, which, by God's providence, fill with water in the rainy season to nourish the year's crops. The rains give way to the tears of those who sow arid fields in the hope of a good harvest to sustain their households. God's deliverance, God's good care, may very well feel like the refreshing rains of the Negev, turned to tears of struggle in planting and raising a good crop. Psalm 126 tells us, though, that those tears really will give way to the gift of a good crop to feed, nourish, and restore the people of God, and that in the end, all creation can and will celebrate with noisy rejoicing in this good and faithful God. The third image is an agricultural image of sowing and reaping, which mark the beginning and end of the growing season. Planting, watchful care, weeding, and finally harvest. Here is a powerful reminder of the importance of place, somewhere to be settled, because without place, somewhere to dwell and call home, the concepts of sowing and reaping in whatever form they might manifest themselves, are simply not possible. Home is a concept whose resonances are becoming increasingly important in the world today. Many people find themselves refugees, fleeing from a place they have called home and longing for security and stability and the means to sustain their own lives. They struggle to find a welcome in an increasingly divided world. Place matters. Home matters. Another vivid scriptural image of home which comes to my mind is that of sitting in the shade of one's own fig tree. Here is one's own place to be, a place of stability and dignity, of privilege and responsibility. Without place, there can be no sowing and reaping of a good crop. Rejoicing can become pared down, conditional. Without place, parents are denied the dignity of providing for their own children. This psalm is a powerful reminder that God's good provision is for all people. We can frustrate or enable that good provision. We ask God's guidance as we seek the way forward in an ever confusing and chaotic world. Let's listen again to Psalm 126. When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream. Then our mouth was filled with laughter and our tongue with shouts of joy. Then it was said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we rejoiced. Restore our fortunes, O Lord, like the watercourses in the Negeb. May those who sow in tears reap with shouts of joy. Those who go out weeping, bearing the seed for sowing, shall come home with shouts of joy, carrying their sheaves. Amen.